Hailed as the nicest man in stand-up, 2021 Grammy-nominated comedian Nate Bargatze is headed to the State Fair Grandstand. You can see him on the Be Funny Tour when he takes the stage Saturday, August 24th. Limited tickets still available. For more info and to secure your tickets, head over to KFAN.com, keyword calendar.
Having some fun on a Thursday as my name's Kevin Falness, along with Brett Blakemore, filling in for Paul Allen and Eric Nordquist, talking a little hockey here and there, branching out a little bit beyond that as well. John Hynes, head coach of the Minnesota Wild, will join us in about 5 minutes or so it'll be good to catch up with him and see how his offseason is going. But how about this guy? For the next hour, joined in studio by the one and only Kevin Gorg. Are you kidding me? Gorgie, what's up?
Radio and TV meshing together, huh? This is really exciting.
Well, you're not just TV, though. Like Schaefer, you've got some radio chops, and now you're a podcaster as well.
I just wish I had some cool, on-the-air names like Chris Schaefer. Those were awesome.
What would be your, maybe it's
the K-Train, right? I mean, I hate the nickname. Yeah. Dumba overplayed that in a bunch of interviews, but the K-Train might be what I'd have to go with.
I like that one, though. That could work.
So bad.
I would open it up to the text messages to see if they can come up with some more.
Do not do that.
Could be dangerous.
It's got Negative Dave out there in Arizona listening. We cannot have any of his garbage coming into those text lines.
His nickname for me is Fakeness instead of Falness.
Yeah. Picking on you for the Crocs. I don't understand that.
They're my kids and they're comfortable. I'm going to a baseball game. I'm sitting in the outfield. I
love it. I'd rather be here anyway.
Let me ask you this. I'm curious because I do have kids. They do play baseball, and some of those games are right in the middle of the Stanley Cup playoffs. If I bring my iPad and I throw it on the wagon and I'm watching that while I watch my kid, he's not up at bat all the time. There's not a lot of action in the outfield. If I have that going on in the background just to kind of keep an eye on what's going on with the game, does that make me a bad father?
Not at all. You're multitasking. It's your career. You have to come, whether it's in here to fill in for PA,
right?
Any of the various duties you do for the Wild Radio Network, you have to have that base of knowledge. And if somebody stops you at the grocery store and asks you about Barkov and the power play for the Panthers, you better have an answer.
And that's what I tell my wife. She still says, you can't do that. I said, I'm going to do that. And
that's why horse racing TV's on at my house 24 hours a day. I'm doing research. I'm working my summer gig.
And that's why I sit in the outfield. I don't sit in the bleachers. I don't bother anyone else with it. I sit out there by myself. I've got my iPad out of my right corner of my right eye. And then I'm watching the game. And when one of my kids are involved, I pay attention. So I agree. That doesn't make me a bad person, Mrs. Falness. Take note. I think it's different for you than it is for me. Like, I can walk around in anonymity. But I watch you. I watch LaPanta. Any of you TV guys?
Oh, God.
You guys get... Well, no, I'm just saying...
Until you start talking. And if you're in line at the grocery store and they hear that voice, they know.
It has happened.
They know.
But what's it like for you to walk through a store and hey, there's Kevin Gorg. KG, there he is.
Listen, it happens once in a while. It doesn't happen that often. I'm not LaPanta. I'm not the face of Valley Sports North. But I will tell you this. When my youngest, Annika, who's now in college, was just a little youngster, we were at the grocery store, grocery shopping. She was probably in first or second grade. And we turned the corner to go down an aisle, and this young guy was grocery shopping, who was clearly a hockey fan, screamed Gorg at the top of his lungs.
That's great.
Scared her to death. Daddy, why is he yelling our name? It was pretty good. It was pretty good.
What are you doing in your off season now? I know you've got Canterbury, and that's pretty much 7 nights a week. How often are you out there?
No, we only race Thursdays, Saturdays, and Sundays, so it's great. I love the gig. It's so different than the winter when I'm buttoned up and I'm wearing a suit and running around the rink. It's a little more low key. I'm in comfortable clothes. I'm out in the paddock. I'm outside in the sunshine when it's sunny out. But no, it's been great. I love it out there. I've been out there since 2000, so almost 25 years.
Yeah.
You got Paul Allen up there to entertain us in the press box. Jeff Madej, who runs the whole entire area there for us. A dear friend of mine, Angela Herman, my counterpart downstairs in the paddock. It's awesome. I love it out there. And it's a nice change of pace. I've got hockey all winter. I've got horse racing all summer, and I've kind of gotten used to that cadence.
Yeah, it's fun. I don't get out there enough. I would like to get out there more.
Your kids will love it, dude.
I know they will, and especially the way you guys take care of anyone that comes out there.
We'll roll out the red carpet for the Falness family. Crocs in play.
I'll keep that in mind. More with Kevin Gorg and the life and story of Kevin Gorg coming up as this hour rolls on. He's in studio for the next hour. If you got thoughts, questions, concern, nickname ideas for Kevin Gorg, 64686. You can also email us, booth@kfan.com. But let's go to the hotline. The head coach for the Minnesota Wild is John Hynes. I assume taking a nice nice breath of relief here as he's had a couple of months off from the actual rigmarole of an 82-game grind. Joining us now on KFAN. John, that's Kevin Gorg. I'm Kevin Falness. Thanks for joining us here on this Sunday morning.
Oh, it's great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Where are you these days, John? How are you spending your off season? What are you doing as we get ready for the draft, free agency, prospect camp, so on and so forth as we make our way towards the new season?
Yeah, I'm in Nashville now, so it's hot. I know you guys are getting some heat up there too, but it's hot here right now. But the weather's great, and really leading to date, we had some end of the year meetings with the players and kind of put the Minnesota season to bed for a little while, and then I had an opportunity to go over and coach in the World Championships, basically the month of May. So I was going like May 5th through the 25th, which was a real great, good experience, and saw a lot of Wild players with obviously Boldy on the team and lots of players in the tournament that I thought did well. So it was really good to see that. Now have a little bit of downtime, but now kind of getting ramped up now for the draft, free agency and development camp, which is a little bit of a busy time of year for us over the next 3 weeks. And then it kind of dies down again, say mid-July to mid-August, where you really get some downtime, and then you start getting ready for camp again.
Coach Kevin Gorg, great to hear your voice. Just how much easier do you think it'll be this year coming in with this hockey team when it's not in the middle of the season, when you have an entire offseason to get ready and training camp with the team?
Well, I think it's going to be an advantage. I think anytime you can start a season fresh with a team and kind of have the time in training camp and even prior to training camp to prep, to get ready to what you want. And then, I think training camp is of huge value to hammer in your identity, your habits. You can change and tweak things without it costing you points in the standings. And it's a good chance, I think, to develop the mental toughness and resiliency in your team with how you practice, how you condition. You can practice a lot harder and longer and more intensely in training camp than you can in the regular season, and that really helps instill your identity. And then obviously having spent some time with the team to really get to know the players and the strengths and weaknesses of our team in general. Some players, now we can communicate with those guys through the summer and continue to develop those relationships and then hit the ground running in September.
You mentioned the World Championships. You got a chance to go over there to Prague, and I know that you didn't get the results that you wanted, but it sounded like a phenomenal tournament. The host country won. That's always good for morale. I know it was a raucous atmosphere, but you mentioned the fact you got to see Matt Boldy up close and personal. All reports are he had one hell of a tournament. What'd you think of Boldy outside of the Wild confines and doing it on the world stage?
It was great. It was great to see him. It was great to have to be able to coach him, and continue to develop our relationship and our coach-player relationship, but also the personal relationship that goes along with it. Led the tournament scoring. He played on our top line. He played power play. We used him on the penalty kill, which is something I think we're going to try to implement a little bit with him to expand his role a little bit. This year he did a really good job over there, picking things up and doing well. And he was a guy we counted on. And the thing I like the most about Bolds is, yes, you want the point production, but he played an important role on the team that was filled with a lot of NHL players, and he played the right way. He led the way, and he played winning hockey, and that was really good to see.
Coach, I always think of the Stanley Cup playoffs this time of year. We're the crunch time in this year's Cup with Game 6 tomorrow night. And I think of teams that have won the Cup and how they always have a superstar that you knew would at some point win a Cup. Right now, that superstar might be Connor McDavid in comeback fashion, but he's always had a guy like Draisaitl by his side. I look back at when Sidney Crosby and the Penguins had their run. He had Evgeny Malkin by his side. When the Blackhawks had Taves and Kane. If you're going to get there, and if Kirill Kaprizov is that superstar, is Matt Boldy a good enough player to be the 1-1A to that guy?
I think Matt certainly has the potential to do that, and at least in my experiences with him, there's a lot of growth. I still think there's a lot of growth with Kirill. There's more upside with Kirill, as good as he is. I still think there's more there, as does he. And I think with Bolds, he has all the attributes. He's a real competitive kid. He's coachable. He's got great size, great skill. I think the big thing now with Bolds is being able to, get a bigger engine, a bit stronger, a bit more stamina, where he can play a power game along with a skill game because he's a big, strong player. But I think, with those two guys up front, along with an Eck, when you look moving forward, there's some real players there, I think, that can play a winning style of hockey and be able to take over games. And that's what we're looking for those three guys to do. I think Bolds is right on track for that.
What was last season like for you, getting thrown into the fire there at the end of November, and that it felt like you didn't have much of an opportunity to catch your breath? It was just one thing right after another, and injuries were a big part of that. But what was last season like now that you've had a chance to take a breath and reflect on what ended up being 63 games behind the bench for you?
It was an awesome experience. As I said, it's the second time I've come in the middle of a season, and it is. It's a lot. I think my prior experience in Nashville helped. I think kind of put some things into perspective and go about it in a way that you didn't overwhelm people with how you want to do things, but you were trying to be adaptable and pick maybe the most key important things you think the team needed help with, and let the rest of it continue to go through where everyone wasn't overwhelmed. The big thing for me was I really like the team. There's a good group of guys there. I think there's a lot of talent. They're hungry to win. I think everybody's disappointed in what happened last year. But to me, the thing that I'm most excited about is the team and the players and the makeup of the guys that we have the opportunity to coach every day. I've been around different teams in the league, and these guys are. I think there's a lot more there. But I really enjoyed working with the group through the ups and the downs and all the trials and tribulations that everybody went through during the season, and that's what gets me most excited moving forward.
And, John, we'll see you during training camp, and I guess a couple of tweeners that I have questions on are Murat Huznadinov and Liam Olgren. You got a little taste of what they can do at the NHL level last year. From a head coach's perspective, as you come into training camp, how much do you value what you saw from them last year against NHL talent to what you're going to see during training camp and into the preseason to make those evaluations before you put that roster together for game one?
Yeah, I think that Murat's experience coming over and then Liam coming in and playing some games at the end are certainly valuable things that we'll put into the evaluation. I think first and foremost for them, individually coming over from Europe and having, Liam having some experience in the American League, prior to coming up and playing with us and then getting in games with us, I felt was really important for him because now, for him, he knows the style of the NHL game. He's played against NHL players. He's played his first NHL game. So I think there's a confidence in that is important for players to come back into training camp. But also it's the hands-on experience of, okay, here's some areas I know I got to improve over the summer. That's the best teacher because when you go through that experience and the player knows I got to get a bit stronger or a bit faster or whatever it may be, he truly knows that because he experienced it. And Murat, I thought, did an unbelievable job coming over, from Russia straight into our locker room, not speaking a lot of English, and then really he was thrown right in there. He played every game, and he I think he's another player in talking with him in his exit meeting, just real valuable experience for him. Just a couple quotes that he said was, it's just, you got to skate in this league. Like, I got to get a bit stronger, my lower body, my stamina. There's more confrontations all over the ice than it is in the KHL. So I think those guys are going to have a really good summer. Liam, I know, is in Minnesota now training, which is a great commitment for him. I know Murat's coming over in July, so they're going to spend time with our strength and conditioning guys, our skills coaches, and really put in a real good summer. So I'm expecting those guys to come out and really make an impact in training camp and push to be regulars on the team.
Talking to John Hynes, head coach of the Minnesota Wild. Paul Allen would call it a covenant catch-up, and that's what we're doing today, off-season, what's going on in the world of John Hynes as we make our way towards the new Minnesota Wild season, which unbelievably is right around the corner, of course. The Stanley Cup Finals is still going on, though, John. You're a lifelong hockey nerd. I know that hockey consumes your life. Now that we're in the off-season and you've had a chance to take a breath from what happened with the Minnesota Wild, are you able to take in the playoffs? How do you enjoy the Stanley Cup Finals? And what are your thoughts on the Oilers trying to pull even here with the Florida Panthers tomorrow night?
Yeah, I love watching the playoffs. A lot of times what I'll do is the first couple rounds I'll just watch as a fan, and then I like to study the conference finals because I think, you have 4 teams that have gone through 2 rounds of the playoffs. So, and then you kind of break those down, like on video, you're making tweaks, maybe some things that they do systematically that we might want to tweak. But I think just really going through, the style of game, the style of players, the intensity level of it, pull some clips that we may show some guys in training camp of, this is the level of not just structure you need, but the competitive nature that you need to play with to win. And then same thing with the Stanley Cup Finals. You break that down and study that as the summer goes on. But I think that it's been great to see. Hey, I hope it goes to Game 7 because it's another night of hockey we get to watch.
Do you have a rooting interest? Because I think, Coach, the hockey world's such a small circle, right? And we have connections to players and coaches from our time in the league. I've got a small connection to Kyle Oposo on the side of the Florida Panthers, but the hockey fan in me wants Game 7 like you. Do you have a rooting interest in these finals?
I don't necessarily have a rooting interest. I mean, for us, it always goes back to players that you've coached. Like you said, you want to see guys that you have relationships with, that they have a chance to get the ultimate prize. You'd like that personally for them. From a coaching standpoint, it's really interesting, right? You have a guy like Paul Maurice who's been there. He's a great guy. He's a good coach. He's an ambassador for us as coaches. So you'd like to see someone that's put in the time and the effort to be able to get rewarded going this far again. And then you got Chucky Knobloch, or Chris Knobloch, sorry, who is came in mid-season, first-time NHL coach, has done a great job turning that team around and has the top players are really turning it on. And so it's like you want to see him get rewarded too for the job he did. But to me, I in this particular one, I don't necessarily have a rooting interest. Other than I like it to go to Game 7 and a couple overtimes. That would be fun.
I'm with you. I think the more the better, and especially the fact that we're getting to Game 6 Friday night from Rogers Place. From a complete bystander's perspective, I mean, I wouldn't say the Panthers dominated the first 3 games, but they took a 3-0 series lead. Now back come the Edmonton Oilers. They've forced a Game 6. They're going to be at Rogers Place, 7 o'clock tomorrow night. You can hear it right here on KFAN. Who's the momentum favorite at this point, Coach? Florida still leads the series, but if Edmonton gets the win on their home ice tomorrow night to pull this thing even, holy smokes, what a Game 7 that's going to be.
Oh, for sure it will be. I think it is. I mean, I would say Edmonton probably has some momentum now. I think winning those games and starving off elimination. But all these series go different, right? Like you have the 3-0 lead and then you're Edmonton. You have nothing to lose in that game, right? So you come out and you give your best effort and find a way to win the game. And then Florida's got a little bit of kind of pressure on them at that point, right, to try to close it out. I think the more that this goes on, I think Florida's going to be ready to go. They don't want to go back to Florida to make it a Game 7. And obviously Edmonton's got some momentum. So it's going to be an intense game and a great environment to watch.
We're talking to Judd Brackett at the top of the next hour. Of course, the draft coming up next week in Vegas. You mentioned that you're going. What's the head coach's role at the NHL draft? And this one will be at the Sphere in Las Vegas.
Yeah, we don't have really it's support for Judd and his staff. You're there working with Billy and the management staff if something happens to come up, whether it could be trade options or things like that. But as far as the amateur draft, that's really Judd and his group. We don't have a lot to do with that. We just don't have a chance to see the players. But it's just a chance for us all to be together. We have our NHL coaches symposium there, where it's there's clinics and presentations that we have to give. They got like 700 people have applied to that, so that's great for learning and picking up some different things and sharing ideas. And then as far as with the Wild, it's more of in a support role for our scouts and management.
All right, last thing, we'll let you go on this note. You mentioned the real downtime for the NHL and especially you is coming up in August. What exciting plans do you have for the Hynes family before you drop the puck on training camp and beyond?
Well, I got my oldest daughter just graduated high school, so she's going to University of Tennessee. So we're dropping her off at school mid-August, which will be an experience. And then school starts here early, so really in August we don't have a lot of plans. We're traveling a little bit mid-July, but once August starts, school's there, and my other 2 daughters play high school and middle school volleyball, so I'll have a chance to watch them play for a month before head back up into training camp. So I'm excited about that.
Awesome. Well, enjoy your summer. Enjoy being a daddy when you get the opportunity, and we'll see you back in the state of hockey here in rather short order, actually.
Yes, it's going to come quick. But I'm excited for it. So thanks for having me on, guys, and enjoy the rest of the summer as well.
Thanks, he goes. Coach. The head coach of the Minnesota Wild is John Hynes, and I'd have to think that there was a collective sigh of relief. It sucks when the season ends. When the season ends anytime, I mean, in possibly 2 days, the season's going to end for one of those teams, and it's going to be devastating. It was for the Wild, too. They go through that 82-game grind, and it finally comes to an end. But once the closure sets in, I bet it's just that he just gets a chance to catch his breath here, and I'm sure that's what John Hynes and company have been doing.
Well, we're both around it. It's intense. I mean, the hockey season, there aren't a lot of breaks. Like, it is just an intense time, and the coaches and players take it real serious. And so if it's a day after a loss, you feel it around the rink. And if you're traveling and they're going through a losing streak, you feel it in the hotel. You feel it on the team bus. Like, it's just, there's tension around that team. And even when they're winning, there's pressure to keep winning. And so I think it's important for all the players and coaches at that level to use the summer to their advantage. What's crazy to me is we're in the middle of June and Florida and Edmonton are still playing. It feels like our season got over forever ago. So, yeah, it's a quick turnaround for those guys when you think that once you get to September, everybody's kind of gathering again for training camp. So it's awesome to make these cup runs for Florida. It's back-to-back years where they're going to go to the middle, almost the end of June. That's taking a lot of tread off the tire if you look forward to that following season.
Yeah, it's an incredible grind, but that's what makes the Stanley Cup trophy so incredible. The grind that it takes to hoist it over your head, well worth the price you pay. We've got another 45 minutes or so with Kevin Gorg. As mentioned at the top of the hour, we're going to talk a little more about the NHL draft with Judd Brackett. He's the guy that's going to be leading the war room for the Minnesota Wild once again. I think for the fourth consecutive year, he's going to be the guy that's going to have all the information about who the Wild are going to target in the NHL draft. We'll talk about that with him, some of the Wild prospects. That's coming up at the top of the hour. But when we continue, more time with Kevin Gorg, still taking nickname possibilities for Kevin Gorg. One I saw, Gorgeous Gorg. It's in the running. K-Train, Gorgeous Gorg.
Let's stop with the nicknames.
We like the alliteration. 64686, booth at KFAN.com. And you can call us 800-320-5326. We'll open the phone lines. We'll talk a little Minnesota Wild and whatever else is on your mind with Kevin Gorg next on KFAN.
5 years in the making. Rube Party is back in person. Join us for the return of Rube Party Friday, July 19th at Forgotten Star Brewery in Fridley. Come hang out with all your favorite fan personalities, play your favorite fan games for great prizes, enjoy live music from the Chris Hockey Band. Don't forget the great food and drinks all night long as well. Get the full details now, KFAN.com, keyword party. That's KFAN.com, keyword party.
Keyword party, Rube Party. You going to Rube Party on July 19th, Gorgie?
I'll be out of town. It's our bye week at Canterbury. I'm heading out to New York, going to Saratoga Racetrack to see my good friend Andrew Offerman and his crew out there. Looking forward to that. So I'll be watching from afar on social media. Will you be there?
I got the invite from Lil B, and I made the mistake of responding with a tentative, like a maybe.
Good luck.
She didn't like that at all.
Yeah, you don't upset her. You know that.
She fired back with a maybe, really? And I said, well, definite maybe, but that's my thing. I never commit to anything. And honestly, who wants to see me at the Rube Party? You got a chance
trust me, they're
to
out
rub
there.
elbows with meat sauce and potentially Dan Barrero, Dan Cole. No one wants me there. I'm just going to be in the way. I'm going to be the guy at the back table by myself. That's what I picture in my head. And I
Plus, just being anywhere near Ben Lieber, I feel bad enough about the way I look every day. 100%. I don't need to stand next to that guy to rub that in. My God.
100%. So, yeah, I'm going to take a definite maybe. I might be there. I might not.
Falness.
I might be there. I might not. Well, part of the reason is because we're going to be gone for a while, and I think we might be back at that time, but I'm not sure what my mental state will be.
You're a man of the people, Falness. You are.
You know what?
Get it done.
I like it better behind a microphone when I don't have to make eye contact with a lot of people. So, and I think most people prefer that as well. We're taking in your suggestions. One thing that I had, Gorgie, I was asking people suggestions for a long road trip because we are doing that trip. We do it annually out to California. And this year, to save some bucks, we decided maybe we'll drive there. And I've got 3 young boys. 14, 12, and 9.
I've seen the Falness boys.
Stuffed into my 2016 Chevy Tahoe with my wife on the passenger side and us trying to make we've done it before, but they've mostly been in car seats since the last time we've done it. So I don't know how to navigate this from point A to point B. Any suggestions how we get through this? Again, 1,900 miles is roughly 36 hours.
I think it's changed. I think when we were kids, and I'm old. I'm almost 60 now. I'm 57 years old. We had those bingo placards that we had in the back where you look for different street signs, and you'd cover them up, and there'd be prizes from mom and dad, and it would keep our attention. Now, with technology, these kids can watch a whole season of shows, or they can watch movies, and it's just a little easier to, I think, pacify the youngsters. That's an awful long time in a car.
It is.
Have some stops planned out where you can see some different things, stretch your legs, go to some fun places to eat along the way, because otherwise it gets to be too much togetherness, I think.
Yeah, that's what we've done in the past is you can't do it all in one fell swoop. You've got to take breaks, and you got to stop. Like someone said, hey, drive at night while they're sleeping. Well, no, that doesn't work because I can't keep my eyes open past 10 o'clock anyway. But it's an opportunity to stop at a hotel, get in the swimming pool for the kids. They can go swim. I can have a daddy water, and we can kind of relax it and break it up in that way. But if you drive too long, it will drive you
it's
berserk.
hard. Yeah, at our age, you get tired. So 7-8 hours a day is probably enough, and have some good stops along the way where you can find a certain hotel with a pool for the kids, or a place to see where there's some tourism. I don't know. It's an awful big undertaking on your part, but if you're not buying airline tickets, it makes sense, right? You can make it into a family trip and have some fun along with it, and the money you'll save on the airline tickets you can pump into some of those fun stops when you make that journey.
The other part of that is when we're out there, we have to have a car. So if you're going to rent a car, add that on top of the airline. It's a monumental task, and 5 people to fly cross country.
It's a big one.
It's not cheap. Another suggestion coming in here, 800-320-5326. Tony in St. Bonnie joining us now. What's going on, Tony? What are your suggestions?
So my suggestion would be, when my kids were little, we would drive down to Chicago, where I was born and raised, and we would give them each $20. Now, my kids were only 5 and 7 back then, but we gave them each $20 single dollars. And every time they got in an argument, they had to give one of them back.
Ooh, I like that.
And when one of them had to give $2 up, after that they could spend it.
I like that idea, Tony. You're breaking up, so we'll cut you loose. That's a good idea. Another thing that I'm seeing via the text line is Paul Dombeck. I don't know what that means. I've seen that a few times where the people, that must be a game that you play on road trips. Someone's got to clarify what
I have no
Paul
idea what you're talking
Dombeck
about.
is.
Yeah, that doesn't make any sense.
Let's do this, Gorgie. I want to get in a break. We've got some other things that I want to get into. Not only hockey related. Yeah. We got to talk hockey. I know you're a big golfer. You like the ponies. I got a lot of things on my mind that I want to get to with you. If people want to get in on the conversation, they can. We got Gorgie in here for another half hour. You want to talk wild, you want to talk ponies, golf, whatever it might be. 800-320-5326. You can also text us 64686, booth at KFAN.com. More Kevin Gorg next on The Fan.
Find our Mall of America street team all summer long out at our events. Ask about our Mall of America mystery cards where everyone is a winner. Sarah will be next. KFAN.com, keyword calendar.
Kevin Gorg with Kevin Falness along with Brett Blickmore. Gorgie's here for the next 25 minutes or so. You want to get involved in the conversation? Would love to have you. 800-320-5326, booth at KFAN.com. You can also text us at 64686. Got this one on the text message, actually via Twitter there, Mr. Gorg. And this guy suggests to break up the trip, make a stop at the U.S. Hockey Hall of Fame on your way to California. That's not on the way. I mean, I strongly encourage everyone to go to Evelyn and check out the U.S. Hockey Hall of Fame.
Which is awesome.
But that is nowhere near where I'm going. California is west. That is direct north.
No, I think if you're going to tie in hockey to this trip, you better stop by Salt Lake and find out what the new digs look like, because it's going to be weird. But when you're doing your radio broadcast and we're doing our TV broadcast this coming year, the Wild are going to be playing hockey in Utah. I can't believe that's going to happen, but here we are.
And they say, well, but that beats, I mean, I think Mullet Arena was fun for what it is and what Arizona State has down there.
It's a great place to watch a game, but you can't do that long term.
Not in the NHL.
4,500 fans, it's just not going to work.
So they're moving to Salt Lake, and they become, at least for now, the Utah Hockey Club.
Oh,
what do you think?
I don't like it at all. I like nicknames. Like I'm gonna push this out there again today for our local hockey team in the Minnesota PWHL, the Purple Rain. I love fun nicknames that tie into the city, and so I'm certain at Utah they'll find their way to that. But Purple Rain, the P-Dub, make it happen.
One thing that I've heard a couple of their nicknames. The Mammoth, I think of lacrosse. The Yeti, I think of my coffee mug.
I don't want a Yeti.
So
Yeti's terrible.
What would you go with for Utah?
I have no idea how jazz ties into Utah. So if you can be that creative, think of something maybe along those lines, because forever the Utah Jazz have dominated that landscape. So maybe it's something that can mesh nicely with that. I have no idea. I've never been to Utah.
Yeah,
have you?
I have. We've driven through it.
Well, there you go.
West.
And that actually is on the way.
Yeah. You know what we did going back to, not to go Russo on it, but when I worked in Denver, we actually made a trip to watch, I think it was CSU play BYU, and we made a trip to Provo, Utah. I don't know what it's like these days. I mean, this was back in the late 90s, it would have been, and everything shuts down at 6:00 at night. At that point in time in that area, it was not a fun trip for a bunch of guys in their mid-20s.
No.
But
you're going to shut things down a little early when you're in Provo.
Great place to watch a football game, though.
Oh, absolutely.
It was pretty cool. I do want to get into movies with you. I've got some cool guest potentials, and we have to talk Stanley Cup Finals. We were having a great conversation off the air. Hopefully we can bring that on the air as well. But let's go back to another trip idea real quick, because Josh in Glencoe is very patient. Josh, good morning and welcome to KFAN.
Good morning.
What do you got? What's your suggestion?
Every time I travel out of the Midwest, it's always a good idea to rent a vehicle besides taking your own. If you take in tires, brakes, wear and tear and everything, and peace of mind if you break down or anything, that rental car will kind of save you some hassle if you get into any.
That's a good suggestion, but that's expensive. Gorgie, that doesn't save me money.
But to his point, you're spending money on the front end, not the back end. Yeah. These are long, hard trips on your vehicle.
They are.
And you can probably get some type of deal. You work in the NHL. They have car sponsorships everywhere. I think, is it National, the title sponsor for the Stanley Cup playoffs? So you've got a hook here, Falness. Be creative. Maybe lean on Mr. Leopold a little bit, but get that done, because it does save on the wear and tear in your vehicle. You've got young dudes back there that are going to be making all kinds of messes. Leave that up to the rental company to clear that up, not you.
Someone suggested I ask Mr. Leopold if I could borrow the company charter.
Good luck with that. I don't think
that will happen. So we'll plan on trudging our way out there, and who knows what creative outlets my wife might have. I mentioned earlier in the program I was working on Woody Page to come on, and I used to work with him back in the day, and he was a curmudgeon, kind of in the lines of a Patrick Royce.
And we had on yesterday at Barrero was phenomenal.
It was fantastic, and I think Woody would have been the same way. Worked with him for 4 or 5 years back in my previous life before the Minnesota Wild, and he's a curmudgeon, but I say that with the ultimate and utmost respect. I only bring that up because that fell through. He's got his ESPN stuff going on, and he wasn't able to join. But the same happened with Mark Duspavic, who I know you have a good relationship with. I had him lined up for last Thursday, fell through because of his TV gig, was hoping to get him on the line today, fell through because of his TV gig. But, man, the former Gopher and the former Minnesota Viking has fallen into an awesome job there working with the PGA.
Yeah, the Faribault Falcon. So my dad was the longtime golf pro at the Faribault Golf and Country Club. Kenny Gorg was down there for 42 years. We'd commute from Burnsville. And one of the members at that course was Mark's father, Ed, their family. And so his sisters worked in our golf shop. I've known Mark since he was in high school.
Yeah.
So when he went and played for the Gophers, for all of us that had those connections to Faribault, that was such a big deal. And then to see him go on to play for the Vikings, and now the success he's had on the PGA Tour as their lead rules official guy, it's phenomenal. And he's excellent at what he does. So anytime there's any controversy on the course or players need a drop, that's who they're calling in to make the official ruling on the broadcast. Mark does a great job.
This is the text that I got from him when we were exchanging texts back and forth over the last few days. It says, Kevin's dad was a big influence on me as a kid. Our family, they were members at the Faribault Golf Country Club, and 3 of my sisters worked for him at one time or another. When I played for the Vikings, I used to go visit with him when he had the golf dome near Buck Hill. Tell me about your dad.
Yeah, Kenny, still alive in his mid-80s, hanging in there, watches a ton of golf on TV. He's a huge Minnesota Wild fan. He loves Kirill Kaprizov. But yeah, that was my summer, Falness. When I was from age 12 on, I worked at that golf shop. And, even though I never took to the game like he did as far as my skill set went, I was an average golfer at best. I loved being around his shop. And then later in life, he still had the shop in Faribault, but he opened up a golf shop in conjunction with that golf dome that was right in the shadows of Buck Hill in Burnsville there. And so for many, many years, he had that golf shop, and he would do club repair out of there. He would build sets from scratch. So just involved in the game of golf all my life. I watch a ton of golf now. I play fantasy golf, as anybody who will listen knows. I'm obsessed with that. And, just through my dad, I've had a real passion for that game.
Is your dad still swinging them?
No more swinging them. He's got some neuropathy, so his feet are really bad. His back, he's got some issues there. When you work in golf, you're on your feet. And he was on his feet for nearly 5 decades, and I think it's kind of caught up with him. But he still, again, he gets up to see the grandkids, loves when any of those 8 kids are over. And I was just at his house on Father's Day to watch the last hour of the U.S. Open. One of those great traditions you have, right, with your dad. And so I got to go over and have dinner with my family and see him for the golf, and it was big fun.
What did the Gorgs think? We brought it up in News du Nord last hour, talking about the U.S. Open, and what a magical run it was for Bryson DeChambeau. What a train wreck it was for Rory.
Yeah, you feel bad for Rory, because I'll give him the putt on 18 downhill, just under 4 feet with some break. That under that type of pressure is a putt that you're going to miss once in a while. But the one on 16 is the one that set the whole train in motion. It's under 3 feet. I think the stat I saw is he had made 496 putts inside of 3 feet consecutively. So that's a heartbreaker. And I really do enjoy Rory. I love him. I think he's great for the game of golf. Now, on the flip side, Bryson DeChambeau came out 5, 6, 7 years ago, burst onto the scene, and kind of had an edge to him, a chip on his shoulder. That whole personality has evolved. I love what I saw this weekend. The interaction with the fans, signing the hat for the kid on the golf cart with the special needs. And then after the championship, having all the fans that stuck around, giving them a chance to touch that trophy. Bryson DeChambeau is good for golf. And I think what we watched this weekend is going to force the hand of the PGA to somehow, some way, get the Live Tour guys back, get this to be a combined effort to get all the superstars in golf back, because let's be honest right now, we need in the game of golf personalities and players like Bryson DeChambeau.
Could not agree more. Of course, we got to talk a little bit about the Stanley Cup Finals. We were talking about it off the air, and we brought it up with John Hynes as well. Game 6 coming up tomorrow night in Edmonton, Alberta, from Rogers Place. I feel a whole lot different about this series now than I did after Game 3. It was all about the Florida Panthers. It was all about Sergei Bobrovsky. Now Connor McDavid's starting to take over, Kev, and I think there's a real possibility that it goes to Game 7. If it gets there, flip a coin.
Yeah, if it gets to Game 7, then Florida's really going to start to feel it. I think, the game tomorrow night, I think you're going to get the absolute best from the Florida Panthers. I don't know why you didn't get their best after they got beat 8-1, but if you look at the totality of Game 5, they were probably the better team most of that hockey game. The scary proposition is McDavid is back. 8 points in the last 2 games. He's taking over these hockey games. Florida has to get back to what they did in the opening couple games of this series, where he wasn't invisible, but he wasn't nearly the impactful player he is right now. They were much more disciplined in their details to how they defended number 97, and they better hope the guy by his side, you mentioned it when you were in commercial break, you better hope Draisaitl doesn't get going here, because the great equalizer in this series, I thought Florida was the better team coming in. I thought Bobrovsky was the better goalie coming in, and I looked pretty smart through the first 3 games. I don't look so smart anymore. And if the goaltenders are going to be equal, which they have been the last couple nights, there's nobody on the ice that can touch Connor McDavid. Nobody is as good as that guy. Florida might have better depth, but he's the best player on that ice. And so if Edmonton's able to somehow win another game tomorrow night, I wouldn't bet against them in Game 7.
What would you give to be in the building tomorrow night, 7 o'clock, leading up to it, even outside the building?
I'd rather be outside, to be honest. I'd love to be out there with the big screen TV. Having been to Edmonton numerous times, those fans love hockey more than I can ever explain. Let me put it to you this way. They play in the Taj Mahal right now. It's a beautiful brand new building here in the last couple of years. Let's go back 5 or 6 years when they played in the Northlands Coliseum, which was probably in vogue when the North Stars played Edmonton in the conference finals in 1991. So this place was way past its prime. And 5, 6, 7 years ago, the team was terrible before they got Connor McDavid, and that building was full every single night. They love hockey no matter what. So I think it's super cool if Edmonton can make this unbelievable comeback, get it to Game 7, maybe win the Cup. There's a market that deserves another championship. I know they won a bunch a long time ago, but to my point, that building's full, whether they're good or bad, every single year. So I love fans like that.
The cliche Mount Rushmore question, when you talk about the all-time best hockey players to ever grace the planet Earth, Gretzky, Lemieux, or Howe. Pick your combination in what order. That's typically the top 4 that most people are going to come up with. How close is McDavid to cracking the top 4, even though he's still in his prime? I'd ask you about Crosby, but I know how you feel about him.
Well, Crosby and McDavid are probably the next 2 in line.
Okay.
But there's a gap there.
McDavid doesn't crack the top 4 yet?
Not yet. It's too early. He likely will. I mean, there are 4 people up there, right? The 4th of the 4 is Lemieux, and he's an unbelievable player. Like, I love Mario Lemieux. But
injuries.
The injuries cut, the numbers aren't quite what they could have been. Crosby and McDavid have the credentials. But right now, I put Crosby well ahead of McDavid because he's got multiple Stanley Cup championships. Right. And McDavid's going to do it. Like, if you had to bet right now, you wouldn't only bet that he'd get 1. You'd bet that he'd get multiple. He's that type of player. He's so incredible at what he does. But right now, Crosby's the next in line, in my opinion. And I am biased, and that's okay.
It's interesting that you say that you would put Lemieux 4th of those 4. I had this conversation on Beyond the Pond with our buddy Pat Micheletti, and he didn't list Gordie Howe in the top 4.
Oh, come on.
He didn't. I can't remember if it was Beliveau or Messier or who he put in his top 4.
See, for me, Bobby Orr and Gordie Howe are untouchable. Yeah. Gretzky's the best I ever saw, and I just have a hard time believing anybody was better than Wayne Gretzky. And the numbers back that up. Like, that one's irrefutable. So for me, it's pretty simple to get to where I got there with Lemieux. And again, it's no disrespect. And if people want to point fingers, maybe I'm still harboring some ill feelings from what happened in that incredible Cup run in '91 for my beloved North Stars when he went through the entire team and turned John Casey inside and out on that the goal that they showed back.
He didn't just turn Casey inside out.
Bad.
There was a couple of defensemen that he slipped right in between and slipped. And no offense to them, what a play by Mario Lemieux! Just unbelievable.
It was, and I'll tell you a true story. So that was a great Stanley Cup. It went back and forth. The North Stars actually had a chance early to take control of said cup. But in Game 6 at the Met Center in Bloomington, I'm there with a couple of my buddies. It's 8-0 in the second period, and they stand up. They're like, I can't take anymore. I'm like, dude, we're not leaving. Like, I know this sucks. This is no fun, but I've never seen the cup with my own eyes. I've never seen that whole procession happen. So what we're going to do is we're going to stay, and as all the fans start to filter out, we're going to go down near the ice, and we're going to watch this with our own eyes. And we did, and that last period was so painful. It was so awful, but the reward was we got to see Lemieux and the Penguins with that cup with our own eyes, and for a young man, that was pretty cool.
What I remember about that the most, I think I went to a couple of those games during that playoff run early on, and I can't remember. I think why I saw one of the Edmonton games. That's not the point of the story. I remember watching the Stanley Cup Finals in my parents' living room, and we had to pay for it. It was on pay TV,
one of those Spectrum Sports type of deals.
I do remember that. So that's what I remember most about that, is that the Norm Green show was in full effect back in the day. So let's talk a little Minnesota Wild. We know that they're in the off season. We had John Hynes on earlier. What does this off season look like for this Minnesota Wild team that maybe doesn't have a ton of wiggle room?
They don't. I think the biggest question mark is going to be answered during the draft. I think if you're going to make a big trade, and I think the one move that they have on the table would be, are you going to shuffle the deck with the goaltenders? I don't think they will. If I had to make a bet right now, I'm guessing those 3 guys. I'm talking about Wallstead, and obviously Gustafsson and Flower. We know will be one of the 2 guys when camp ends. I'm guessing they start camp with all 3. We'll see. But if there's a move to be made, that's the move. And then they've got some cap space right now. So along with the draft, if you make a trade and maybe you bring in players that have a little more on the salary side than you're giving away, or you're giving away some prospects, Bill Guerin's got that wiggle room. I think something happens in or around the draft. And I think what they're looking for right now is somebody that can play a top 6 role and be dependable. No offense to Marcus Johansson. Last year, he was given that opportunity multiple times and it didn't go well. And so I think he's a better fit on the bottom six. So you need somebody to fill that void, and I think that's what they're shopping for.
When we talk about, elite hockey names, Marc-Andre Fleury's right there at the top of the list. You're a former goaltender. I know you've got a special affection for the future Hall of Fame netminder. How glad are you that he's back in a Wild uniform for one more season?
I love it. From our side of things, on the broadcast side, it doesn't get any better than having the chance to converse with the Flower, with Marc-Andre Fleury. But really, from a team perspective, talking to the guys and talking to those young goalies I just mentioned, Wallstedt and Gustafsson, the impact he already has had on them as young goalies is immense. And I think the dividends will pay off in the years to come when I think this team has those young goalies in place and maybe he can make that run. But just the way he carries himself, the way he practices. And then you and I are over there at Tria Rink and we go down, we get to hear from John Hynes, we get to hear from the guys in the locker room. It's 35, 40 minutes after practice and Marc-Andre Fleury's still in his gear at that gate on the other side of the ice, signing autographs and taking pictures until every kid's needs have been satisfied. You can't put a price tag on how he goes about his business every single day. When there are no cameras rolling, he's just there for the fans. I love the man. I think it's been incredibly awesome, and we've been blessed to have him on this team, and I can't wait for another year with him.
Talked a lot of hockey. Should we talk about your Denver Broncos?
No, we are not. I'm telling you right now, I'm in a dark place with my football team because I cannot stand Sean Payton. And so I'm put into this horrible box where I don't want them to do well. I want the coach to be jettisoned. And yet I love the orange and blue. I do not want to talk about the Broncos.
Are you going to miss Russell Wilson in your Denver Bronco uniform? Not so
you're
much?
Pressing all the buttons today, aren't you? No, not so much.
I'm curious, as a guy that follows college football, and of course, you've got a vested interest in the Minnesota Vikings as well, here being local. What do you think about the quarterback situation here with J.J. McCarthy? Does he get a crack this year? Is he the future, and he'll have to wait a season?
I think they had a great draft, and I think he's got a ton of potential. But I think Sam Darnold's going to be the quarterback for this football team this year. And maybe, again, see how the season progresses. I'm a point spread kind of guy, and they're going to be underdogs in 6 of their first 7. That's a fact.
Yeah.
And in game 1, when they're favored, I think they're favored right now by a point or a point and a half. That schedule maker didn't do them any favors. So we'll see how Darnold does. But if they can steal a game or two early and they can stay relevant, whether after 7 games they're 3-4 or 4-3, he's going to remain the guy. If they get off to a 1-6 start and you think this kid can get in there and get the valuable experience he needs, then why not? I think it's going to prove to be a very good pick. But I don't think you want to rush it at that position. I think you want to give him time to learn the system, have time with KOC, and I'm excited about where they're headed. The Vikings are my second favorite team, but because they've never won one, and I've got so mmany dear friends like PA that live and die with the team, I would love to see this work out to the point where they can make a big run. And this kid has that, he has that it factor to his game. He wins everywhere he plays, so I'm excited.
Hopefully you're right. We need that in the worst way from one of those 4 major teams. Yes, I know the ladies are having success, PWHL, the Lynx, but we need the Vikings, the Timberwolves, the hockey team. We need these guys to step up and do their part on this end. We know that this fall we'll see you on our television screen there with Bally Sports North in some way, shape, or form. We will hashtag Mute TV. But remind us again what's going on out there in Shakopee, what you're doing during the daily grind at Canterbury.
Well, we'll race tonight, 5 o'clock. We'll race again Saturday at 5, and every Sunday is Pepsi Family Day. This is the day you need to write this down, Falness. Every Sunday at 1 o'clock, pony rides, petting zoo, face painting, and then after the races get over, Paul Allen calls a kid race. So all the kids come onto the track, 7 and under, 8 and over. We do it every Sunday after the races are done. And PA, the voice of the Vikings, calls these kids races, maybe mixes that in. But, CanterburyPark.com for all the details. This Saturday, we have our big Northern Stars Turf Festival. We've got horses shipping in from all over the country, big time racing. It should be awesome, and can't wait to do it.
Just for fun, shine some light on your little podcast adventure as well. Wooden Sticks.
Yeah, Wooden Sticks on the Talk North Network. I had a great conversation with Ryan Carter yesterday. You know how entertaining the Birdman is. White Bear Zone. We got Helvey in here.
Yeah.
Carter shared some really cool stories on not only his time growing up in White Bear Lake, but more importantly, what it was like to be a member of the Anaheim Ducks when they won that Stanley Cup. That's available right now. We just released it this morning, and you can go back in time and you can hear from Lou Nanny, Pete Lopresti, one of my all-time favorite North Star guys. We've had Alexis Pearson on, Taylor Heisey. So there's some fun shows there. We spend about 45 minutes just hearing their journey. And the reason it's called Wooden Sticks is because I want to take them back to when they were kids. And when I was a kid, we all had wooden sticks. That's how we came to the game of hockey. It's changed a great deal, but I appreciate you giving me a chance to pump that up. And Carter was awesome. And I put him on the spot with Kaprizov and whether he'll stay or win a cup, so you can get all that stuff from the Birdman at Wooden Sticks on Talk North.
Outstanding. I've never been happier to know a person has a podcast other than you. So this is tremendous that you have another outlet for your voice and your character. Gorgie, thanks for coming in here for an hour. This was great.
I loved it, Falness.
Always enjoy seeing your face. And again, hopefully I see it again before next fall when the Wild hit the ice.
Sounds great to me. Come see me at Canterbury.
The voice of Kevin Gorg joining us here on KFAN, filling in for Paul Allen and Eric Nordquist. We'll take a break and then we'll keep it on the NHL stage. Judd Brackett's talking prospects next on The Fan.